Hello again and welcome back. Here we are on challenge number 5 in lesson 1. So in the previous challenge we created an object that has all the category names and the count for each of those categories. And the challenge now is to turn that into a list or an array of objects where each object has a name and a count property, okay? And there's a few ways to do this. You could invent your own ways, right? So I'm going to go over one way, but don't think it's the only solution, right? So how did you do on the solution, right? So here we'll talk, I'll talk about the solution that I might choose, right? So let's give it a try. So let's call this we need a name for it. I've already got categories and counts. Let's go, let's call this cats and counts. We'll just name it short, okay? Just remember that the short one is the one with the objects, right? Okay. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's get the names here, right? So the names can come out of the unique names, right? And then this categories and counts all have the count in them, right? So we can't map the categories and counts because it's an object, right? So objects can't be mapped, but you can map an array, right? But we can map these unique category names. So these are all just the strings though. But each one of these strings maps to the count value that's in this object here. So what we'll do is we'll take the unique categories array, right? Those are all strings, and if we do .map, right? So this again is a transform. I'm starting with an array of strings and I'm turning them into an array of objects, okay? So every string is one of these guys, but we're going to turn that into something that looks like this instead, okay? And there'll be one of these for every name in our original array. Okay, cool. And then just so we don't forget, I'm going to take the name here, cats and counts, and put it in our export list, okay? So first thing is map takes an function, right? So I'll just type the whole syntax for the function here, and then it's going to take in the name. So I'll call it name this time. And what I want to do is I want to return an object here, right? And again, we can, since I think this will only take one line of code, we can do it all on a single line and we don't have to use the return keyword if we're just on the one line, right? So actually, maybe I'll break that up because there's a weird syntax here. Like if you put an object in there, it thinks that this is the curly brackets for the function block. So you actually have to wrap that in the parentheses like that, and that starts to look a little weird. So I think what we'll do is maybe we'll do it the other way. I'll put the curly brackets there and just spell out return, okay? That'll also keep this line from getting too long. Okay, so let's make an object here that we're going to return, and I'll put the name in here. Now normally you'd put the key, which is name, and then you'd put the value name right here as a variable that has the string in it. So I'd put name here, but JavaScript gives us a shorthand for this. So if the variable that has the value for a key, if they're the same spelling, right, N-A-M-E for us, we can just write them once. So this and this are equivalent, right? So if name was a string like this, then but actually maybe that's not a good one. What if I said, what if name was like, toys like that, right? Then I could just put name here by itself, and it would give me an object that was name and toys like this, right? Okay. Oops. Okay. So so that's our first key. So I've got this one now. So that should be this, right? And now we have to include the count. So I'm going to put a comma here and say count colon, and the count is going to come from this object here. So I'll get the object, and remember the keys in the object match the name here. So I'm going to take the name and say, let's get the value at that key and use that as the count. okay? And there we go. So I think that that should solve that one, right, without too much effort. And what we're going to do now is we're going to check our code here. Let's log it. Let's import it and log it so we can see what it looks like, okay? So I'll go to my app.js here. I'll import, let me get that name again, cats and counts. So I'm going to get this guy, go to app.js, and I'll add that here to my list. And then console log cats and counts, right? And then I'll refresh the browser and we'll see what it looks like. Oh, there we go. So here's my list of objects there. I've got name is toys, count is 12. Okay, name is kids, count is 5. Okay, so that seems to be working pretty good. Let's move on to the next challenge. Okay, so challenge number 6 is to export all the data. And actually, we were kind of doing this as we were going along. So that one is actually already taken care of, right? So you're going to export all of your items here, right? And then this is import the data into your app. So we actually kind of did that too. So I think those are covered, right? And then it says down here, it says display some information in your app. So the goal here is to display the number of products and display the number of categories, right? So to do that, we'll have to import the data, and we'll have to import either categories or one of the objects or arrays that has the unique list of categories in it, right? So let's do that. I'm going to go to app here, and we've imported all this stuff up at the top here. I'm going to comment these out for now, and let's go to our component here, and let's make a list here. Let's say a paragraph. Oops. Right, so I've got my paragraph here, and what I want to do is I want to list the total number of products. Okay, display the number of products, right? So we'll say products colon, and when you write a component, if you want to use a JavaScript expression, for example, if we want to display a variable or a value within the component, what you're going to do is you're going to use the curly braces. Okay, so if we just want to display something literally, like I want it to say hello world, or I want it to say products, right? Let's say product count here, right? So if I want it to say that, I'll get rid of the curly brackets, right? You can see it just says product count, right? If I want it to show a value that I'm generating from some code, then I can say, you know, data dot, and then to get the number of products, I'll get the length of data. So data is an array, and if I get length, it tells me how many items are there. So you can see here when I do data.length, it actually gets the length, like 100 items, right? And then let's do that again, right? So you tried this on your own, right? So display the number of unique categories. Actually, I guess it'd be this one, right? Okay, give that a try. Okay, so here's how I would do it, right? I would say category count, and then I do the curly brackets, and I'd say unique categories dot length, right? And now I've got category count of 22, okay? And maybe instead of hello world, I'll call it productify. I don't know, right? Okay, goofy startup names, right? So so there we go. So that's challenge number 7. Okay, so we're making a lot of progress here. Now what I want to do is I want to display each of the categories as a button. Okay, so I want to generate one button for every category. So in the end, it might look something like this, right? Okay. So really, we want to do the unique categories because we don't want to have duplicate buttons, right? So you can give that a try on your own, or I'll walk you through it now. Okay. So the goal here is we're going to use map again. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of map, filter, and reduce, right? So map to turn the list of strings into a list of buttons, okay? And React, if you give it a list, it'll display those things automatically, right? So it'll automatically turn that into a list of JSX elements, so you don't actually have to create a loop to do that. Okay, and that's kind of a nice convenience that they've given us. Okay, so let's do that now. So I'm going to put the curly brackets here because I'm going to write some code inside of this JSX block, right? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the unique categories, and I think I'm going to use this categories and counts right here, okay? So I'm going to say categories and counts, and I'm going to map them. So currently I have an array of objects, right? And the objects look like this, right? It's like an array, and then there's a list of objects inside the array, and every object in here has a name, like toys, and a count of 5, or whatever the number is, right? And this would be name of music and a count of 6, okay? So this is kind of what we're working with, right? We got an array of these objects. So that means that when we map, the value that's passed to the mapping function, right? And the mapping function, when I say that, I'm talking about the function that we add as the argument to map. So this is our mapping function here, not the map outside there, right? So this inner function right here is the one I'm talking about, right? So this is going to receive an object. I'll just put object there, right? And then it's going to want to return some JSX. So this might be a little bit long, so I think I'm going to put a return there. I'll put it in the next line. And since this might be multiple lines, I'll put the parentheses here like this, right? Okay. And what we'll do is we'll make a button, and I'll put the closing button here, right? Let's get our React project. Oh, there's a list of my buttons right there. Should be 22. It's kind of hard to see them, but they're actually there. They don't say anything yet, right? So let's fix that. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to include the name off of our object here. So I'm going to say object.name, okay? And now you can see I've got toys, kids, electronics, games, music, garden, home, okay? So that's pretty good. Maybe, outside the name, I also want to include the count, say, okay? And maybe I'll put that in its own tag. So I think I'm going to move these to their own line like this, and then I'll put a span in here, right? So that'll give us a tag if we want to style the count. So I'll put the span there, and inside here I'm going to say object.count, and I'll get the count property, okay? I want to put a space in there. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I guess I got to put the space here inside the span, right? So that doesn't look too bad, right? So I got all of my products here, and they all have the category count, right? How many products in each category, okay? And so that would be the solution here with the bonus of including the counts, okay? So here's your challenge, okay? You want to do the same thing that I did here, right? But what you want to do is you want to display all the products, okay? So you want to map the data here into a list of products, and your products could be, I made buttons here, but they could be a div with other tags inside it, okay? So give that a try and see how you do, and then we'll walk through the solution in the next video, okay? And thanks for watching.